China's waging political warfare on the U.S. The U.S. is finally waking up, but can it get its act together to fight back? Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. It may not seem like it, but the Chinese Communist Party is already waging war on the United States. It has many weapons in its arsenal, but the one you don't hear about enough is called political warfare. Political warfare is a form of unrestricted warfare that combines diplomacy, propaganda, bribery, infiltration, and many other tools to manipulate people into giving the CCP what it wants without a fight. This is far easier, less risky, and more effective than conventional weapons, and a lot harder for the victims to recognize what's going on until it's too late. Luckily, the U.S. is waking up to the CCP's tricks. In fact, the House Oversight Committee recently had a 4-hour-long hearing specifically addressing the CCP's political warfare. That hearing had some very interesting guests. Among them were retired Brigadier General Robert Spalding, retired Colonel Grant Newsham, and president of the Jamestown Foundation, Peter Mattis. I've actually had 2 of them on my podcast, China Unscripted, so you know this was the real deal. Hey, Mattis, you're welcome anytime to come in and make it a hat trick. That sounded flirtier than I meant it. They had some great insights into Chinese political warfare. I'd say both House Republicans and Democrats learned a lot from them. Had they not devolved into petty feuds? I'm sorry, how did a hearing about CCP political warfare turn into arguments about who needs therapy?
We can talk about China and Trump or Russia and Trump.
You need therapy, Mr. Askin.
No, you need therapy. You're the one who's involved with the deranged politician, not me.
If you ask me, I think they all need therapy. Heck, after watching this as an American, I need therapy. Seriously though, of all the times in the world, why did U.S. leaders have to use this hearing to rant about alleged Trump and Biden bribery schemes and whether there are Nazis in Ukraine? While they were at it, I'm surprised they didn't argue over whether a burrito is a sandwich. I don't care what the court says, a burrito ain't a sandwich. It really seems like they weren't taking this entire hearing on the CCP seriously. And I'm not the only one who thinks that.
With all due respect to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, this is not about Donald Trump. This is very serious. If you want to make it about that, we can make it about that. But for crying out loud, for one time, let's put the national security interest of this country ahead of our political interest.
How naive am I that I thought that this hearing could actually be bipartisan when we're talking about threats that the Chinese Communist Party presents to the United States of America. Wow. Well, I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. We live in this country, and this country is threatened by the Chinese Communist Party.
But it wasn't just political backbiting that undermined the credibility of the hearing. It included the people involved. For example, why did Democrats decide to bring in Timothy David Snyder as their minority witness? This guy's specialty is in Central and Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union, not China. In fact, his testimony mostly focused on disinformation about Ukraine, sprinkled in with jabs at Trump and Republicans.
If you follow what Group 912 of the Chinese Ministry of Public Security is doing, its themes and its tropes are much less skillful, but the basic idea is the same. To convince Americans that elections are basically pointless, and then also, in this case, to undermine the Biden administration and to promote the Trump candidacy. That's what its actors are doing at the moment.
Wait, so the CCP is simultaneously trying to convince Americans that elections are pointless and supporting a particular candidate? That sounds counterproductive. Chaos in the U.S. is a huge boon to the CCP. The U.S. is plenty distracted with Ukraine, Israel, the border crisis, the upcoming election, you name it. The hearing just served to prove it. What does any of this have to do with China's political warfare? In many ways, this was a win for the CCP, because in the end, nothing got done. Just pointless bickering. Meanwhile, U.S. politicians just handed the CCP propaganda on a platter to show just how much the U.S. government sucks. Which is technically true, but I can think of some other governments that suck way more. Had congressional officials not gotten totally distracted, they would have heard the valuable insights of these guests. But since Congress didn't listen to them, I hope you will. Here's what they were trying to warn America about. As Mattis points out, the CCP is not operating out of the goodness of its heart. Not that it even has goodness, or a heart in the first place. It's in the CCP's ideological blood to want domination and control, not just domestically, but on the international stage. Retired Brigadier General Spaulding points out adversaries like China are harnessing the power of communication to distort and manipulate the very fabric of our society. That's more than just TikTok. It's also using deepfake anchors to spread misinformation. Retired Colonel Newsham warns of the same thing. According to him, a key aspect of political warfare is psychological warfare. It changes how people frame things and view the world. This, in turn, has shaped the way we think, talk, and act when it comes to China. For example, the CCP has purposefully conflated criticizing the CCP with anti-Asian racism. That idea even showed up in the hearing.
Anti-Asian racism is pervasive in this country. Republican rhetoric and policies have helped to normalize it. In March 2020, Donald Trump tweeted the racist phrase, quote, China virus, end quote, in reference to COVID-19.
Right, because identifying that the virus originated in China, or even suggesting that the CCP's lax biohazard safety standards may have had something to do with its spread, is anti-Asian racism. Can we get a team to go looking for these weapons of mass distraction? Another point these experts brought up during the hearing is that the CCP has conditioned the U.S. defense establishment to believe that China doesn't pose a real threat and that any problem can be solved through engagement and mutual understanding. This is best exemplified by former Assistant Secretary of Defense Joseph Nye, who said, "Work with China, don't contain it. If we treat China as an enemy, we're guaranteeing a future enemy. If we treat China as a friend, we keep open the possibility of a more peaceful future." To this day, many politicians still say we need China's help on things like climate change, fentanyl, and North Korea. Let's stop and think about this for a moment. We got a communist nation that threatens its neighbors, commits genocide on its minorities, uses rape as a form of torture, targets dissidents abroad, steals hundreds of billions of dollars of intellectual property a year. Still not done. Devastates the environment, wages drug warfare, and supports other authoritarian regimes and terrorist organizations, among many other atrocities, and we tell ourselves that we should continue cooperating with them? According to some politicians, business leaders, and academics, yes. You're not cooperating, you're enabling. And this is successful political warfare. China managed to do what the Soviet Union couldn't, and their wall is still up. But Mattis, Newsham, and Spaulding did provide solutions. Newsham says the U.S. needs to do a better job at exposing the CCP and its political warfare. That's something the State Department's Global Engagement Center should be doing. It was created to expose and counter foreign propaganda and disinformation. But according to Newsham, it's been very bad on China. But you know what Newsham thinks does better? China Uncensored. Seriously, Newsham testified to Congress that private outlets such as China Uncensored are excellent at educating large audiences about PRC malign affairs and the need to do something about them. These shows are factual, informative, produced on a shoestring budget, have nearly 2 million subscribers, and the Chinese government hates them. Wow. Thank you, Colonel Newsham. And it's true, the Chinese government does hate China Uncensored. Chinese state-run media has called China Uncensored disgraceful anti-China garbage. And this is all possible because of you. China Uncensored has been a thorn in the CCP's side for over a decade because you like the videos, share them with your friends, and subscribe. But the channel really is on a shoestring budget. Yet it's still a lot more effective than the State Department's Global Engagement Center. But that's why I need your support on the crowdfunding website patreon.com/China Uncensored to keep up the fight. All it takes is $1 or more an episode. I make about 16 episodes a month, but if that's too much for you, you can set a monthly limit. So you could ensure I can keep uncensoring China for even $1 a month. And as a thank you to everyone who gives on Patreon, I'll answer one of your questions at the end of these episodes. Today's question comes from Radis Vadam. I have a question. Hypothetically, if the CCP were to fall today and the government in Taiwan were able to fill the vacuum in a bloodless coup, what are some ways you think this new China would change foreign policy? Ooh, that's a very interesting question. Now, I'm not entirely sure the government of Taiwan would even want to be the government of mainland China, but I think the thing to focus on is what you said about China's foreign policy. China right now is a Marxist-Leninist state. This is literally written into its constitution. That means China's foreign policy is rooted in struggle. The core Marxist belief is that there needs to be perpetual struggle to drive civilization forward. When Xi Jinping talks about win-win cooperation, that means China wins twice. If China rejects that toxic ideology, then there actually could be meaningful exchange between the US and China because one side isn't trying to secretly destroy the other through political warfare. Thanks for your question and your support. And thank you for watching. Head over to Patreon by clicking that orange button. And if you didn't know, I also talk about news, politics, and philosophy through the lens of gaming on my new show, Deep Thoughts While Gaming. The latest is about why bottle caps in the game Fallout makes no sense as a currency, and neither does the US dollar. Click here and let me know what you think. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.